Emotions are information. Emotions are information. Okay. Emotions and decision making. A fact is not just necessary for wisdom, it's also irrevocably woven into fabric of every decision. Okay, have you ever made a bad decision? You went with your gut, and when it turns out wrong, you slapped at your forehead and said, well, that was something to do. What were you thinking? It was a mental lapse, or maybe just an poor reasoning. In hindsight, it's a plan to see what you feel to take into account. Let's just hope you learned that lesson. A sensible thing to wish for, but what was the lesson? We believe that our ability to reason and to think rationally is our highest mental power above our unruly emotional side. This is but a trick our brains are playing on us. In fact, our emotions exert a huge, though mostly unconscious, influence over how our minds function. This fact is especially evident when it comes to the decision-making process. There are the obvious instances where emotion alone determines our actions. If we fear flying, we'll drive despite the increased danger. When if overcome by passion, we might skip our usual measures to prevent unwanted pregnancy or sexually transmitted infections. But emotions influence extends far beyond that. Most decisions and attempts at the predicting future outcomes. We ought to buy this a house. I'm not going to take that job. Pasta is a great choice. In every case, we consider all the options and choose the one that seems most likely to result in a favorable outcome. In theory, at least. In reality, our emotions largely determine our actions. If we are feeling something positive, confidence, optimism, contentment, we will come to one conclusion about what we ought to do. If our emotions are negative, anxiety, anger, sadness, our decisions may be quite different, even though we are working with the same set of facts. The resulting patterns are fairly predictable. As discussed earlier in this chapter, anxiety narrows our attention and improves our focus on the details. It makes us anticipate what will go wrong. That may not seem like a feeling with the welcome, but it's a good frame of mind. When we are performing tasks involving numbers, such as finances, for instance, if we were deciding whether to make an investment or a major purchase, a sunny mood might lead us to minimize the risk and do something we will regret later. Negative emotions make us weigh facts carefully and err on the other and the side of caution. Positive emotions, on the other hand, fill us with the sense that life is going our way. If we were feeling strong, exuberant, energetic, we are more likely to base on our decisions on characteristics or gut instinct at that moment than on careful reasoning. That's a useful outlook. If we're planning a birthday party or when someone is in need of a moral support, or maybe not some help when we are feeling our text written. Emotions' true role in our decision making has been measured abundantly in experiments. Researchers will induce a mood in their subjects by having them read or watch something happy or sad, for example, and then ask them to make decisions. In one study, subjects were seated in the room that were either comfortable or uncomfortable, and then asked about their satisfaction with their lives. The comfortable room group reported being more satisfied. In a separate study, when subjects were made to feel sad, they perceived in a mountain this deeper than it actually was. And in a study on medical school admissions, it was found that applicants were more likely to be admitted on sunny days than when it rained. Yes, admission officers and decisions were biased by the weather. In an experiment we conducted at Yale, teachers were divided into two groups. One was told to remember and write about positive classroom experiences, and the other was assigned to recall a negative memory. Then all were asked to grade the same middle school essay. The positive mood group marked an essay 4 grade higher than the negative mood group. Yeah. When they asked the teachers if they were believed their moods affected how they evaluate the papers, 87% said no. Assessment studied a greater degree of subjectivity, such as grading a creative essay, or generally a heightened risk of emotional bias compared with judgments that are more objective, such as grading a math test. And our feelings can linger long past the moment that inspires them, influencing its subsequent behavior without us knowing. It's not as instant of mood bias. So for instance, if you argue with your kids about breakfast and you're still angry while driving to work, you might drive more aggressively than usual and make risky decisions. When we recall happy moments from our past, we're likely to make decisions based on optimism and confidence. If we are remembering negative things, we'll feel skeptical and pessimistic, and we'll decide things differently. Anger's influence isn't what you might expect. Researchers found that when people are angry, they tend to believe that individuals are at fault when things go wrong. When we're sad, we are more likely to blame external circumstances. Interestingly, anger makes people more optimistic than the sadness, possibly because angry people feel in greater control of their lives. We make decisions continually, all day long, and most of them are small. We can't deliberate over each one, so we rely on our brains to make up judgments. These issues come up all the time in contemporary research into how our brains operate. There's the thinking fast and the thinking slow concept, where our brains are believed to work on two separate but overlapping tracks. One that immediately responds without any much deliberation, and the other that takes its time and weighs the information first. When we use our brains for familiar or relatively simple functions, we come to quick responses, while novel situations or complex problems cause us to cogitate. These quick decisions are particularly susceptible to our moods and unconscious bias, especially when additional information is unavailable. We decide often with minimal conscious thinking. None of this is to say that emotion inherently causes our judgment. In fact, with a great emotional awareness, just the opposite may be true. Offense can serve as another form of information, telling us important things about what we are responding to any given situation. When we are faced with a decision, anxiety may tell us one thing, enthusiasm something completely different. Knowing this, we can take our emotions state into account before choosing a course of action. Is it our negative mood that's making us suspicious? Or do we have any genuine reason to worry? Is our confidence a result of our external mood, or is this truly the perfect decision? Emotions and the relationships. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Here is an experiment you can conduct using your stopper as Gunia pig. Gunia pig? What's that? Okay. Go through the list of everyone you encounter in the course of your daily life. Everybody from your significant other and immediate family members to every coworker, from the top to the bottom. Every relative, friend, and acquaintance, and a cashier at the supermarket, your doctor, your barber, the desk clerk at your gym, on and on. Oh yeah. Just every human being whose path crosses yours, whether for hours on end or just 5 minutes. Okay, now we go through the list and ask yourself for instance. Top of the head answer to this question. How do I feel when I encounter each and every one of them? How much do I look forward to my interactions with them all individually? Do I smile at the thought of seeing this one or that? Does it leave me emotionally neutral? Or does something inside me tense up a little at the prospect? It doesn't have to be outright anticipating, just a little as of anxiety knowing that this person and I will be face to face at some point. But what would you use to describe the feeling you associate with each one? Is it anxiety, joy, confidence, inaccuracy, boredom, affection, irritation? Those all makes us more or less attractive to one another. Do you look forward to working alongside the colleague who's perpetually mad at the world? Normally this emotion isn't something we ever put into words and even think much about. It's like an instinctive reaction that comes from somewhere deeper than the labels can easily express. Almost animalistic. When I see this person, something inside me leaps with joy, or crashes in dejection, or something in between. Experiment over. Now, first you have a clearer notion of how our strongest emotion reactions dictate the nature of all our relationships. In seminars I conduct with teachers, I'll sometimes ask them to list their students and consider the feeling that each name automatically prompts. Is it love, dislike, trust, joy, fear, disgust? Let's all see, be honest, and think about how that emotion causes you to act toward each of those children. I've had people break down, cry during this exercise. They instantly recognize how differently they treat each child, depending solely on their position of how he or she makes them feel. It has little to do with how the child performs in class, or the child's needs, or anything they can name. It's just a strong, almost visceral reaction that usually has to do with something about the teacher, not the student. These are mostly good teachers who do their best to treat each student equally and want to establish a positive, nurturing relationship with them all. But in the real world, despite all our best intentions, it doesn't work that way. For some reason, teachers can barely make eye contact with one child, or give her or him focus and attention, while they eagerly look forward to interacting with other students and seek them out during classroom activities. Outside the classroom, we all operate in the same way. Human relations are indefinitely complex because we ourselves are. but the basic dynamic is rather simple. Approach or avoid. We tell people to come closer, or we tell them to back up. People communicate the same thing to us. So much of what happens between human beings is a result of how we communicate our emotions. And it all depends on something deep inside us, perhaps hidden from our own view, our emotional state. Relationships are the most important aspects of our lives. There's plentiful scientific research showing the enormous influence they have on our well-being. People with a robust social networks enjoy better mental and physical health and even live longer, while unfavorable outcomes are associated with a lack of connections to other people. The purpose of relationships can be seen in all societies, even among animals. Being surrounded by allies is a form of protection that can mean the difference between a life and death. Our need to attach ourselves to others isn't solely sentimental, even if it sometimes seems that way today. Throughout this book, we will discuss in all the ways we communicate our feelings with whomever we are dealing with at any given moment. The subtle, lightning fast and facial expressions, body language, vocal inflections, touch, and everything else in your arousal of signals. When you're expressing positive emotions authentically, contentment, compassion, joy, we do so in a way that draws in other people. Whether it's your best friend or someone like a cashier, they can read our signals clearly and may respond in kind, but that depends on their emotional state. People feeling emotions such as sorrow, shame, or anxiety often lead to discourage social interactions, and those signals are also being communicated. Those people might benefit most from engagement with others, but too often it's unlikely to happen. This is particularly serious problem in our schools, which often reprimand children when they express a negative emotion rather than see it as a cry for help. These are the kids who are neglected, ignored, or suspended for misbehavior when they should be given empathy, extra attention, and opportunities to I'm sorry, and opportunities to build skills and meaningful relationships. Research shows that having just one caring adult can make a difference between whether a child will thrive or not. We all have multitudes of relationships with our children, our parents, and significant others, but also with our plumber, the driver sitting next to me, our softball teammates, our boss, or colleague, and the woman who holds the door open for us at the mall. And all these interconnections operate on the same basic principle. Our mood at any given moment is expressed in the signals we send out. If we are feeling joyful and open and expansive, it will make us confident and accepting of others. If we are feeling down on ourselves, it will color how we relate to other people, or if we connect at all. We tell people what we want from them by the messages we send, whether warm or and hoping for response in kind, or off-putting when all we want is distance. This is challenging for many people on the autism spectrum. They have a difficulty reading the cues and are coming up with an fitting response, and they have a difficulty sending cues that other people understand. As a result, they struggle building and maintaining relationships. We also express emotions in order to get what we want from the people in our lives. If we make a show of anger, we may not earn much empathy, but we instill fear in others and maybe remove any obstacles that were in our way. If on the other hand, we need cooperation and understanding, we know that emotion matches the sense that will get the responsibility desired. People feeling compassion see greater common humanity with the strangers. They punish others less, are more generous and cooperative, and are willing to sacrifice for others. Research shows that high-powered individuals tend to be less responsive to the emotion of people around them. In one study, these individuals responded with less compassion to people with less power when listening to someone describing suffering. Does this phenomenon explain anything about our political and our business leaders? Sometimes the emotions we feel sincerely elicit the opposite of the response we want and need. Picture a typical child. If he is troubled or anxious, he may wish that his parents and teachers would reach out and offer comfort. But when those adults sense that a child's emotional state, especially when he's acting out, they may respond in just one opposite way, because of their own emotional response to the signal of the negative mood. This dynamic rules much of human interaction. When in need, emotional support most is when we are least likely to receive it. I remember being in a 7th grade math class. Didn't intervene. What was his mindset? Stay away. This kid's in a whip who needs to toughen up. Was he too preoccupied with his own issues to pay attention to mine? Perhaps he was just at a loss about what to do. Either way, I suffered socially, emotionally, and academically. Emotion and health. Emotional sickness is avoiding reality at any cost. Emotional health is facing reality at any cost. You lie awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, anxious by some serious problem, impossible to sleep. We've all been there. We are too pressured and distracted to even think of working out. And besides us, you have too much else on your plate. So you skip the gym, even though you know it makes you feel too low. It can be helped. Meals are erratic. Instead of thinking about dinner and planning to shop and cook, you grab a pizza on the way home from work. It's been happening a lot lately. And after that's done, you need to decompress. So you set a pint of ice cream in front of the TV for an hour until it's time to bed and another 3 a.m. starting at the ceiling. Our emotions are linked to Our emotions are linked to physiological reactions in our brains, releasing hormones and other powerful chemicals that, in turn, affect our physical health, which has an impact on our emotional state. It's all connected. That's why physical sickness can be caused by a mind under emotional stress. But there is also the opposite phenomenon. Physical well-being isn't fostered by positive feelings, but the kinds underscore the importance of managing our emotional lives. Instead of brains, hormones, and other neurochemicals are being turned on and off, depending on what you're feeling at any given moment. A hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis located in the midbrain is one of the major neuroendocrine systems that controls how we respond to stress and also regulates our emotions and moods. The HPA axis reverses certain hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol originate. Researchers studying this region of the brain have found that early life exposure to mild, everyday stresses enhances our future ability to regulate emotions and confers lifelong resilience. But exposure to extreme or prolonged stress does an opposite. It induces hyperactivity of the HPA axis and a lifelong susceptibility I'm sorry. Susceptibility to stress. The difference between a good stress and bad stress mainly has to do with the duration and the intensity. For instance, having to prepare a compelling presentation for a client is a form of stress, but the good kind. Is caused by the challenge of achieving a desired goal and lasting only a short time. The ending of a game or a major event such as wedding day a factor in similarity. Stress-inducing but happy. These events, from their momentary release of stress hormones, but then it ends. Short bouts of stress can boost immunity and raise the levels of cancer-fighting molecules, and in fact last in a further week after stressful situation ends. Many of us spend hours and entire days under emotional duress until it becomes a chronic condition. Our brains are embedded in a constant flow of stress hormones for its evolution has definitely not prepared us. We don't suffer only emotionally. In those instances, our physical health is affected too. Stress lives in a fight or flight state in which your body tends of long-term building and repair projects.